Hi, welcome back to another episode with Lattice Training. Today we're going to look at board climbing. So first of all, how can we introduce board climbing into your training? Secondly, what are the major pitfalls that most climbers find when they start using a board? And thirdly, let's go through a couple of examples of how to bring it in as a single training session that you can do each week. So firstly, how do we get started on using a board? So there's a couple of examples of boards behind me. We've got the Moonboard, which is becoming more and more popular. We've got a Woodie board over here, which has got a load of nice hardwood holds on there. And on the far side, we've got a less steep board with the same wooden style holds. All of these different types of boards are going to have different movement patterns and slightly different rules behind them. So make sure you take the time to learn those rules at the individual climbing wall that you're working at. So if we start off on the Moonboard, really nice and simple. You can see the LED lights, they're ready, and you can use the app to go through a load of problems. But it is quite a difficult board, so first things first, whether you're using the Moonboard or not, is to check, can you actually hang the holds? A lot of these holds can become quite small, so don't get too intimidated by those. You need to check that can you use any of the holds whatsoever. So there are a big range of holds, like a load of bigger ones as well, and there's still loads of problems you can be doing just using these, because the angle of the board itself is going to make the difficulty hard enough, even if you just use the easier holds on the board. So once you've checked whether you can actually hang the holds themselves, start trying to do a couple of individual moves as well, because it's one thing being able to just hang there, but it's also another thing to do a couple of problems up the wall. So for me, if I'm learning any new board and I'm quite experienced on this type of climbing, I'll still just do a couple of moves to begin with, just to get used to the style of the holds and make sure I can actually link a couple of moves in a row. So that might be just pulling on halfway up from a standing start, doing one or two moves, and this will be at the end of my warm-up. So it means I know that I can get to the top, and I know that it's going to be a useful training tool for me during that session. So once you've worked out whether you can actually do a couple of moves on the board, the next thing is to start choosing problems. And a big thing for me about this is grades mean nothing on a board. It's a general guideline, and it's something just to keep in mind when you're trying to choose the difficulty, but don't get too bogged down by the individual grades. I've seen loads of really good climbers that have performed super hard outside, come onto a board and they have to drop the level by almost a number grade. So just use it as a guideline against other problems on that board itself. Don't get too stuck on not climbing that hard. For me, starting off on these boards, it's really useful using some of the apps. So on the Moonboard, we've got the really useful Moon app, which we can choose different problems on, and that highlights the LEDs. On other boards, we use apps like the Stoked app, either way you say it, sorry. So you can go through a load of different problems on there and choose a benchmark. Once again, this is stuff that people have graded, and just keep it in mind, but it gives you an idea about what problems you can and can't do moving forward. So in terms of how you're going to climb on a board, I think that comes down to what do you need individually as a climber. There's a lot of rumours and a lot of opinions out there about trying to stay front on, inside edging and staying really square onto the board. Personally, I would never do that. I think I need to work on technique as much as possible all the time. I'm already a bit stronger in that sort of position anyway, so I would always use any techniques I wanted to, whether that's twisting, drop knees, to make the most out of every single move. I personally would recommend that for most people. If you're particularly weak in certain positions, please try and just work on those. So if you are weak in wider positions, staying square on, go for it, try it out. However, don't get too bogged down by just using the same style of movement over and over and over, because you'll just get really good at that, and then you won't be able to implement other techniques when it comes to real climbing. The next thing is, what problems do I actually want to train on or project on? And for me, once again, it comes down to what techniques do you want to learn or get stronger at? So a good way to look at this is choose a couple using your weakest style. Once again, ignoring grades. So for me, that might be using really small holds and twisting style movements. And I'll pick a couple of problems like that. I'll pick a couple which are completely opposite, which is a bit bigger holds, square on moves, and a bit more powerful, which I really enjoy doing. And then I'll use a couple in the middle just that look quite interesting. So you're getting a complete variety of movement styles and working your weaknesses all in one session. So last but not least, I'll go through a quick example of how to do a benchmarking session. That can be using a Moonboard or any other Woodie. And what you need to do is choose 6 problems which are very popular, and that's why we call them benchmarks. So benchmarks for the grade. And then you want to be choosing those sort of around your maximum project grade. You're going to attempt each problem for 6 minutes and resting 6 minutes between those problems. What I'm going to do is film this in a full session so that you can see how it runs and how often I fail, and keep in touch with our YouTube channel, and I'll be releasing that next week. So hopefully that's given you some really useful information on how to start using boards in your training. We're going to start filming some other sessions which we use with our clients, so keep in touch with our YouTube channel because they'll be coming out each week, and hopefully you'll be able to start using boards in your training soon.